Hey guys, Luke Smith here, coming from We Buy Property in Kentucky, and today we are going to talk about owner or seller financing. So you probably know what that is. It essentially means the owner of the property, they are going to be the financier of the property they are selling. So there's a handful of reasons why to do this. Why would you want to do it? Certainly if you need the cash, then you can't do this. But for many owners, this is a great opportunity for them and even for the buyer. So we'll go over 4 reasons why you should do or consider seller or owner financing. So number 1, it's quick and easy to close. So once you've got a property, you're ready to sell it. A lot of times you're actually waiting on that buyer to be approved by the lender. Certainly those buyers can line up their pre-approval and they can already be working with a lender even before they make you an offer on your home. But in many cases, even if they've already done that legwork, they've already been through that whole process, they've given their DNA and blood samples to that lender is still going to want to do a handful of things even before they allow this property to close, which is at the very least going to take 30 days. And sometimes even longer. And it depends again on that individual borrower. Many times the buyer and the seller can come to an agreement. Everyone can be happy with the deal, and then boom, the bank comes in and they either don't approve of it, they won't lend on it for a handful of reasons. Maybe the property needs work. Maybe the house doesn't appraise for what it's worth, or the lender they don't actually approve that buyer of that loan amount because that buyer doesn't have the income, or they already have other debt obligations. Whatever it is, there's a handful of reasons why a traditional sale can be botched or screwed up when a lender's involved. And it's not the lender's fault, it's just their job, right? So when you do seller or owner financing, that buyer and that seller, you guys can come together, you can make agreement, you can come to terms, whatever that is. Is it for 20 years? Is it a 5-year loan? Is it a 10-year loan? Who knows? And then how's that gonna be paid? What's the interest gonna be? Are they buying it as is? Are you gonna make repairs? I don't know. These are all things that you get to work out. But essentially, once you guys have agreed on price and terms of that sale, essentially, then you guys can close as soon as you want. Maybe that new buyer still wants to get a home inspection just to make sure they know what they're buying. That's fair. You can literally get one of those done in a day, probably get the report back by end of day or even the next day. Home inspectors, they can come in pretty quickly. So usually about a week or so. And then, it's always smart to run a title search. We would recommend that in every property that you purchase. So as that buyer, if they run a title search, great, fantastic. Again, that can probably be done in, I'd say 10 days, 10 business days, about 2 weeks, sometimes less if they know a good attorney or closing attorney that can get that done and do that title work really quickly. At any rate, you can buy a house and make that transaction or conduct that sale in a very quick amount of time compared to a traditional sale. So it's quick and easy. Number 2, it serves both parties. So back when we were talking about, the lender getting involved, there are many people actually, that have damaged their credit in some capacity, whether they bought more than they should, they took on debt that they couldn't afford, maybe they got credit card debt, they had a tough instance in life, they lost their job, they got medical bills, who knows, all the things that happen in life. That's life, unfortunately, and there's a handful of people that actually can't get traditional financing or loan because of something that happened in their past. Unfortunately, most things follow you at least for 7 years, and that's a long time to figure out, lodging or housing for anybody. If you're that seller and you're thinking about seller financing, this is an opportunity where you have to serve an individual that has potentially learned and hopefully learned from their past mistakes, whatever they went through, and now they're back on the right track. Unfortunately, a lender or bank, they're usually not going to lend to these individuals. They consider them too risky. However, maybe you know them, or even if you don't, and you feel that you have a sound buyer on the other end of that transaction, then you can actually work out a deal with them that's favorable to you and also serves them. Maybe you require a bigger down payment or that earnest money deposit, whatever it is, you can certainly do that. It's your house, especially if you're the one that's doing the owner financing, then you can require a bigger down deposit or down payment from that buyer, and then that also protects your interest in the home and to make sure that they're actually serious about buying that home. and you can get cash up front from them. So that's a great option. It not only serves that buyer because again, they wouldn't be able to buy a home due to their impaired credit. And then on your end, you could get a lot of cash up front and then still finance the rest of that out on whatever those terms that you agree to. Again, you could put interest in there. You could just make it really big payments, whatever it is. That's up to you guys to figure that out. But again, it'll serve both parties, not just them, but also you. And certainly if it's your house that you're selling, that buyer usually does have to come to meet your terms in order for you to even agree to this deal, rather than a regular buyer that's just gonna buy it with a lender and take the property off your hands. So there's that, serves both parties. Number 3, it acts as an annuity. So this is important. If you've got an additional property that you want to get rid of, you can sell it. Fantastic. When you go to sell something, you're done right there. The investment's over. You've sold it. It's the difference between milking a cow versus slaughtering it and eating it. So when you're doing this transaction, you are essentially selling that property over time. Now, the great thing is you no longer, yes, you're a property owner, but you've actually been upgraded. Now you are acting as the bank. You, Mr. Seller, are the bank. You are financing this deal for Mr. Buyer, who cannot afford this deal or wouldn't be able to get lending on their own as they, their credit or whatever it is that they have. So what you've built in is essentially an annuity. You can again put interest in this loan to them, so you're not only getting principal payments, but you're also getting interest. So now your money's off the bench, it's working for you, it's bringing back more dollar bills, and again, that person is buying that property off of you over time. Over time, they're gonna amortize that loan, and it's ultimately, if they hit all their payments and they hit everything based on the agreement that you've written, then ultimately, there is a time where that investment will be over, but essentially it acts as an annuity to you, where you're getting payments along the way that you can use in whatever capacity that you want, rather than just simply selling your property. And again, if your property's worth $1,000, roughly, whatever, we'll say that's what it is. If you sell it for 100 grand, you're done right there, that's it. If you sell or finance it over 10 years, typically, even if they buy it at 100 grand or whatever the price you agree on, with that interest, they're gonna end up paying more over the lifetime of that loan. So maybe you end up getting $150,000 for that. Whatever it is, you are ultimately gonna make more money on this deal. Now, on the other hand, let's say the seller, they stop paying, they leave town, they disappear. What happens then? Well, it's still your house, the deed is still in your name. The fantastic thing about that is you can, do this process, start this over, and it would require, you would have to get a lawyer and deal with that, but it is ultimately gonna be your house still because it is still in your name. You'd certainly wanna follow the proper protocols with all that, but it's not super difficult. And again, it's your property. You can go and do the same process again. You'll ultimately make more money on that property. Now, number 4, this will save on taxes. So I love our government. It's created the place that we live, America. It is fantastic. However, I hate paying taxes. That's why I love real estate, for all the many benefits that it brings. So there's depreciation. You can literally write off gains because your asset depreciated. On the other hand, if you bought and your house is in a good area, then you would think that that land is appreciating. Again, it depends on the location, your market, all of those different things. But at least, throughout the state of Kentucky, there's many places that the property is appreciating. Certainly here in Louisville, the properties are going up every day. So when you sell something, you have to pay capital gains tax. That is expensive. Now, when you do this route, you don't. So you are gonna have to pay, that's certainly you're getting income from that, you're getting monthly payments from the buyer, but it's different than when you just sell the property outright. So you can save a ton of money on this, depending on how long you've owned your property and how much you bought the property for. Maybe you bought it 20 years ago and you bought it for 80 grand, now you're selling it for 20. If you were to sell it for 100 grand, boom, right then and there, you're gonna pay capital gains tax on 20 grand. This route actually allows you to save money on taxes, and since you still, own the property, you can still pull on all those levers of real estate, which is where, you're ultimately saving money on taxes, and you're actually garnishing a higher price for your property in the end. So overall, those are 4 reasons why we would recommend seller financing. We love it. we're happy to buy properties this route. We don't get the banks involved. We're happy to spend cash, but even in some instances, we'll do it this way because then it allows us to go in, buy another property, take a property off someone's hands, and it's now outlaying as much of our cash. And we're happy to do a deal with any seller that wants to do that, provided that the property meets our needs. But at any rate, this is something to consider. Hopefully this video helps. And as always, if you've got a property for sale in Louisville or really anywhere in Kentucky, we are cash buyers. We love buying houses. We're always looking, and that is what we do. So whether we do business with you or not, really in the end, it doesn't matter. We're happy to help. We're happy to answer any calls or questions that you may have. So feel free to reach out to us. The number is 502-509-5676. Or you can reach us at our website at We Buy Property in Kentucky. Again, happy to answer any questions or concerns that you have and point you in the right direction. And yeah,